The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individual speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of any affiliated organizations, employers, or sponsors. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice.
All right. Hello, Vikram. Thanks for coming on the podcast. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, how are you?
Good. It's a early morning for you, so thanks for waking up and making a great use of your holiday today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's pretty early for me, but it's not too bad, I suppose.
Nice. So, Vikram, we've first of all, we know each other for many years, and
Yes.
you worked in a lot of hotels around the world. So, actually, let's start off with that. How many countries have you worked in, and how many hotels have you worked in?
Do you want me to list them, or do you want me to just give you a number, if possible?
No, yeah, list them.
All right. So started off working a little bit in Geneva. So Switzerland, I would count as one. I worked in Portugal as well. I worked in Malta. I worked 2 years in two different states of the U.S., Arizona and Colorado, and then I also worked up in Canada as well. So I'm now working in Vancouver. So kind of been all around.
Nice. What a varied experience. So, I mean, let's start. So, you starting in Geneva, was that during your studies?
That's correct. Yeah. So working in Geneva was through getting experiences of working in the school itself, the college I studied in, and then I got the opportunity to work for the United Nations for internship as a pastry chef. That was a great experience. A lot of eye-opening details about how you feed delegates over there. And then from there, we moved on to kind of, going back and forth to school because school was within the same county. So it was really, it's a real experience, I suppose.
Wow, please expand on that. Working for delegates and making pastries for them. I mean, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, this one was a little bit different because this was I would say, more of a part-time gig as a part of a requirement to finish one of our courses. And this was basically an opportunity to learn how the culinary industry works, which was a segment of our course. I was always interested in pastries in a way when you go into culinary, but I varied through different brigades in the kitchen. But I mainly worked in the pastry industry, pastry sections of the things as well. So we created morning breakfast and pastries and croissants and kind of see how they come in, and then how some of them you bake from scratch, some of them are pre-made, and you just kind of put them in the oven to get them hot and ready. You have events as well during the afternoons, so you got to create certain those mini cakes and those things. So those are always interesting to learn. Initially speaking, I didn't have a lot of hands-on that because I was still new to the industry, so it was more of watching it. But then there were moments when they would say, "Okay, you know what? We got to put you into work, and then let's get you to do this," and so on. So, yeah.
All right, nice. So, would you say you've retained a lot of those baking skills, like you bake for yourself or for other people now?
I did. I would like to say I did. In a way, it's a shame I don't use it professionally. But I believe that I can, if you ask me to bake a cake, I can do that. Or if you get me to, say, "Oh, would you like to bake a batch of cookies?" I can do that too. So it's not the end of the world. I like to always experiment with things when it comes to baking, because it's always interesting to see what flavors can mismatch, or mix and match also at the same time. So yeah.
So then, Vikram, like,
Yeah.
what because it's a wide range of topic, right? So
Mm-hmm.
which type of roles, like, okay, that you've said one, the culinary area, but which other types of roles have you worked in or had expertise in? Because, like,
Yeah.
throughout your countries.
So in Portugal, when I did my internship, that was a full-fledged internship. That one I did That was a front desk operations as a front desk trainee. So that's where I learned the fundamentals of rooms management and how you manage your rooms when you're on an oversold night, or when how do you manage when you have constructions going on, and certain necessities and connecting rooms and so on. So those were the type of things that we learned, and communication between different departments of housekeeping. And then when I moved to Malta, that was a very niche type of hospitality, because that one I worked on a yacht. As a steward, which was more on a higher end butler services. So again, a type of hospitality that's more personalized for your guests. As this was a charter yacht, it was always difficult. You don't get to see the same guests every week in and week out, and it's only for a seasonal amount of time, because you can't really yacht in the winter. So one of those moments there. And then in the US, I did a full-fledged food and beverage service internship. This was in Arizona, a year-long management course, management trainee in a way. And then finally, I did an all-round operations in Colorado, which included concierge, food and beverage rotation, front desk. And when I came to Vancouver, I got into sales and marketing for the hospitality industry as well. So it started off with operations, and then I moved on to the administration side of things.
That's pretty cool. That's a wide range. That's a very wide range of things. I didn't expect the yacht part at all. Just one question I have on which I'm curious about from those areas was the front desk when you're working in Portugal. Because my brother also worked in a similar situation, and I'm curious on your viewpoint and comments of it. Firstly, did you meet any interesting people? And I know front desks are usually one of the most hectic places to work in the hotel industry, because you take the heat of a lot of customers. So just I think expand on that a little bit.
Of course. So answering your questions in general, meeting people in Portugal wasn't ideal. I think it was because the hotel I worked in Portugal was a smaller hotel. I was in an island. I was in the island of Madeira.
Did you manage to meet Ronaldo? Just coming up.
The thing is, in Madeira, it is Ronaldo's home. He was born there, so they have a museum dedicated to him, hotels based on him. So he himself wasn't there, obviously, but in Portugal, I didn't get to meet a lot of big names. But when I came to Canada and I was studying my master's, I had to do a part-time job. So I worked at the front desk for JW Marriott in Vancouver, and I got to meet a couple of famous people here. And I think obviously I do have to, I can mention one or two who are, not that exclusive, but there are some that we were actually asked to keep under the low because they're frequent guests, and, when they come to visit the city, they stay there. But one of them we had was for an event was Roger Federer, which I know Rajat is a big fan of in tennis. So we got to meet.
That is incredible. That's so cool.
Yes, that was I think a surreal moment. He was hosting his own tennis tournament here. There were other guests as well, some football teams as well that came in, and NHL and NHL teams as well. So again, those ones we have to keep down low, just because they do frequently visit when they stay. And when these teams come in to stay, people don't know where to stay most of the time, or they feel that they know. But as hotel guests, you have to just say no. You have to constantly say no to that. So it's always a challenge, that one.
Nice. And also on like coming up with like difficult customers and stuff, because as Rishi said, you're always taking the heat. You're the first point of contact. So like, what are those experiences like?
And you can expand on the heat Rajat gives you at times as well.
Wow.
You know what? I think the heat I've got from Rajat, I think I'm used to getting heat from the customer at that point. He's trained me well in a way.
Wow.
The thing is about customer, they always demand a lot of things, and it based on every hotel you work at. I think if I compare JW Marriott to the smaller hotel I worked in Portugal, the standards are completely different. I think guests know what they're getting, and I think that's what's important. Secondly, I think what you have to also realize is, like Rajat mentioned, you are the first point of contact for these guests. So you don't know what the guest is experiencing, because sometimes you've had guests who've had canceled flights or canceled delayed flights, and they come in and you're the first point of contact. They just want to get to the room. They don't want to chit chat, and they just want the keys. But then we have a particular procedure when you work at JW Marriott that you have to do certain things to get certain standards, right? You have to acknowledge guests in their memberships. You have to get their credit card processed correctly, and this sometimes these takes time, or the room might not be ready for certain reasons. So you have to navigate on those little mishaps that happen. I've had a couple of them where rooms are not ready past guaranteed check-in times. As if you go to hotels, you'll realize they always say 4 p.m. is guaranteed check-in time. That allows the guests to kind of, okay, let's relax. But sometimes you don't get it, and then it's 5 p.m. and the guest is like, okay, what are you going to do about this? Are we going to get an upgrade? Are we going to get free food? And I think North America is a culture of hospitality culture is more of giving. So they always want something in return if they've been, if they've not got the service they've paid for. I've had guests said, okay, but you giving me points is not going to, make sense to me. I want more. I want something that's tangible. So you got to give them a breakfast free. You got to comp one of their dinners. You got to send them a bottle of champagne. So these things always happen. Upgrade is one of the last things you want to give, because you got to answer to your management. Why'd you give an upgrade? So it's always difficult on that.
So Vikram, just on the same topic, how do you handle overbookings? I'm very curious about that.
Ooh, overbookings is a great topic. There's a whole subcategory on overbookings. I could talk on hours. I think overbooking is a concept that puts your front desk and housekeepers in jeopardy. I am strictly against overbooking on most reasons, only because I've experienced a lot of overbookings from larger hotels that work in. The JW Marriott I worked for was 500 rooms, 520 rooms, and it's a dual property. So it's two hotels under one roof. Both are Marriott's. One is a JW Marriott, one is an Autograph Collection. So 500 rooms in total. You work as one team. It gets very difficult to navigate when you're overbooked, because you want to create moments. You want to create moments with the guest who's in front of you. There could be possibilities where guests come and say, hey, you know what, I'm celebrating my 20th anniversary with my wife, and I want to do something nice. And you when you have rooms, you give them an upgrade. Oh, okay, you booked a standard room, you can have an ocean view. Whereas when you're overbooked, your hands are tied. You get them what they get. It gets worse when you're an employee and coming to stay and enjoy the property. So if you work at a different Marriott property, you're most likely gonna get one of the worst rooms. And this is just not a Marriott policy; it's all around. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna slew one particular property. It's all the properties that do this, because it's how rooms management works. It's also the same hotel that we had in Portugal. Guests would get, it's a luck of a draw. It's all randomized, unfortunately, and sometimes you get it based on a membership tier. So once those are all assigned, and once those are done, and it's free for all. When you're a base member or not a member, or if you book through Booking.com or OTAs, online travel agencies, then it's free for all. You don't know what you're going to get. So on an overbooked night, if you book through Booking.com, an upgrade is not even possible. I think it's fair to say. So yeah, I think overbookings is a concept that works. When you come to the day, they walk guests. Many of the hotels work in like in cooperation with each other. I work at a current property of Hilton, who's just down the road from my previous property of Marriott. We've had twice guests walked back and forth in a way when we've oversold both hotels in a way. Um, it also depends, because one of the nights we were oversold on both properties at the Marriott. We told Hilton, can we, send over a guest for one night, because the next day we have rooms available. They're like, yeah, we can get it to you for 2,000. So the hotel would cover that charge for a room that would go for normally 500-600, but obviously the cards are in Hilton's hands, and so they will make the call on that. So it generally matters on how good your relations are with other hotels. So properties like these big properties like Hyatt, Hilton, these big chain properties, they can always push them to other brands, but sometimes it not might be the best service. So you do potentially damage customer relations there.
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Nice. I also want to go back a bit to like the difficult customer type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like it's I feel it's very hard in any like hospitality, whether it's like hotel or like if you're like a waiter in a restaurant or stuff. Like when customers are being difficult, I personally I wouldn't be able to keep my cool. But when you're in hospitality, obviously you have to always be positive. You have to be smiling. You have to accommodate. Is that something like you have had to learn to like adjust to in terms of just like not like getting angry or not being rude? Is that, or did it come naturally to you at the beginning?
Um, a bit of both. So initially, I think patience is the key word here. Um, it's very difficult, like you mentioned, when someone is chewing your ear out at front desk, when you can't get around that desk and just give it back when you have to, or when you're at serving. I've had both experiences where I've had rude guests, and it's normal. It's not the end of the world. Just one thing is that so a lot of factors would vary when it comes to things like that. I think one of them is based on your resilience, on your patience, and how much can you take pressure on. That is something you have and you learn over years as you develop them. I think for me, I felt I've always had it, but when I went to college for the first time, it was really, I was given an opportunity to prove it. Uh, so, like in food and beverage, like you mentioned, the server example, one of the things we have is a mock kitchen and a mock restaurant where we as students serve other students in a full functional restaurant, and the head chefs are students and the head waiters are students. And it's just everything is set by students. Just the teachers or the chefs would kind of just overlook if there's a genuine emergency. And in that case, you're calling the shots, and students would really, you would have students who've been asked by the professors to act rude to see how you would do. And it happens. And these things are, just to test your skills. They're your friends, but they will act rude to you because they've been asked to do so. And in that case, you learn a lot. The other thing I would say is this is an external factor is how your management is, because I've been fortunate enough and unfortunate enough to also have both sides of the coin where management has said, you know what, in one property they said, okay, do make the best decision you have to. If you have to give it back to a customer by reason, and obviously then explain yourself so we can defend you, or always get a manager involved. I think that's one of the best ways to deal with it. Secondly, it's that they would kind of throw you under the bus in a way. Like you would say, you don't have this available. They get rude at you. You tell the manager that they're getting rude. They go back and then they confirm that, yeah, we can make that happen for you. And you're like, okay, well, then you just threw me under the bus because now I've lied to the customer and now I look bad. So the whole service just kind of goes downhill. So it's a matter of, correspondence with your manager and seeing, okay, look, this guest is rude. We understand there's a service to do, but what are we going to do about it, right? How are we going to approach it? Are we going to have each other's back? Are we on the same storyline, or we're going to go above and beyond? What happens behind the scenes is a completely different story when you kind of make fun of the customer or something, but that's a different thing. Again, that's a personal. That's in every industry you do that. So
Yeah, you'd have like waiters in restaurants spitting in the food and stuff like that.
no, that is not a practice. That is definitely I am not part of this practice at all.
Oh man.
I have never seen it happen.
No.
And yeah.
No. It's just I was just joking. No offense
Of
to
course,
any
yeah, no,
waiters out there. Of course,
I think
yeah.
I think it's just basic manners to have in a way when you go. One thing I've learned about being in the industry is that me as a customer, when I'm in that role, I understand how difficult it is, and I'll often catch myself going to restaurants and they'll be like, "Oh, we're so sorry, we're delayed," and I'm like, "Hey, I completely understand. Like, take your time. I've waited almost 30, 40 minutes for food, which I shouldn't be waiting in the first place, but I don't lose my cool because I know how difficult it could be. They could be overpacked, or someone would have called out, and these things happen, right? You're short-staffed, so again, you sympathize with them, and then you empathize with them at the same time, and it's like, okay, you get it.
Your mock kitchen reminded me a bit of Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen style.
So it is something similar to that. Yes, it is similar to that. I've been sous chef in my mock kitchen in my first year of college, which I think was fantastic. Rajat knows me as a student wasn't I wasn't the best student in high school. So going from there to my first year being a sous chef, I think I felt really proud of that. So like you said about Hell's Kitchen, it was genuinely treated at that sort of manner at less intensity, but we had a full service, so we had tickets coming in, you're shouting orders, we were shouting at our stations like, okay, I need 2 chickens, I need 2 steaks, I need 2 ducks, and I need one without mushrooms, and they have to kind of keep up with that. And obviously when they come to the pass of the kitchen, you have to make sure it's plated well, and then you're calling for service, and then always the friction between service and kitchen. So it's in the moment, but after that you're all set. Like, you're joking around, you're mopping the floor, you're having fun. There's no hard feelings there.
Would you say there's like a conscious effort to like sort of make it harder during the mock test so that at least when you're actually in front of a customer, it should generally feel a bit easier?
No, absolutely. They make it really hard for you. One of the things we had two teachers who worked in correspondence. One was from the kitchen side, one was from the service side, and the one from the service side, she was very, very hard on us at the start. So she said, when you set your table, we had to do it in a formal setting, and she said the silverware cannot be like an inch and a half. It has to be away from the edge. If it's more than an inch and a half, you get a point deducted. If it's less than an inch and a half, you get a point deducted. So you have to make assumptions. You cannot measure. You have 10 minutes to set the whole table, including going back and forth to get your silverwares, your glasses. One of the things I did was in my first year, first class, what we did, we had to take trays of wine glasses, and wine glasses are very nimble because based on the type of wine you drink, especially red wine glasses, they're a bit heavier, but then based on the type of glass, if they're taller, they're much more lighter and nimble. So what happens is, on my first time, I took it and I dropped it by accident. And obviously, the more you break things, the school has to pay for it, so it goes into their budget. And she told me after my first class, she said, any trays you need, you tell me, I'll go bring it for you, but you're not taking any glasses with you in your hand. So that was one way of getting out of it. I got lucky with that. But other than that, it was always it was always difficult to move around with that.
I didn't know about the wine glass thing. When you see wine is wine.
I thought all wine glasses were the same. I didn't know there was a different one for red wine.
No. Unfortunately, no. There's a lot to wine. Wine is you need a whole other podcast for wine. I did a whole level 2 sommelier course. So I'm actually looking to do my level 3 sommelier course as well. So there's 4 levels to it. So I've done level 2. I'm going to do level 3 pretty soon. The thing with wine is that it's just not about grapes and years and so on, but also the glasses you choose. Obviously, when you have your champagnes, you do it in a flute glass. When you do your white wines, the white wine glass is a little bit smaller than the red wine glasses. So, you get less body in it as well, because white wine is generally less heavier than the red wines. So it's just, there's a decanter process as well, where you actually empty the whole bottle into a decanter, so the tannins are separated. It's a whole process of wine.
That is quite interesting to know. I mean, you get the occasional people who just go straight from the bottle. I mean, yeah, fair enough. But
that's criminal behavior right there.
The body decanters the wine directly.
So you've got screw top wines, you've got corked wine, then you've got waxed wine as well, and it's just like, it's crazy on how much you get and the type of ranges of wine. Yeah.
Do you have like I know, is there a similar thing with like different types of like food as well? I know, like, for example, like red meat, white meat, seafood, like how you plate it, how it's served, temperature, things like that. How it's
Of course, and I think it's important as well to learn all that when you're in culinary. One thing that really shocked and stood out to me, which unfortunately I can't remember for the day, but like, it's basically when you cut your meat, the cutting board, when you see different color cutting boards in the kitchen, if you go to any restaurant kitchen, different colors cutting boards offer different types of meats and processes. I know that white is for poultries, red is for red meat, and then blue is for fish, and I believe green is for vegetables. And these kind of things are basically color coded for you to understand better, so there's no cross contamination. And food allergies are very important, like, to understand. So as a server, it's always important to emphasize on what allergies you have, because you could use peanut oil and that could affect someone with peanut allergy. Like, you have to be very careful. Some things cannot be substituted. When it comes to cooking temperatures, and so it's important that your chicken is always cooked, like, because you don't want salmonella. But with steak, you can eat it almost rare, right? You can just, so it matters as well. You have food like sushis and then salmon, which can be cooked and can be eaten raw, right? So it genuinely does matter on the type of food you have, and it does differentiate the food as
Honestly,
well.
Vikram, I'm going to give you a lot of credit for that, because I wasn't expecting um, such detail when it comes to food and beverage, because that's a whole other skill and level of experience. So, firstly,
Well,
yeah, just congrats on that. That's amazing.
and I think that's where education on hospitality really steps in. And I think the education I received from my hospitality industry was really great. My first year, my first 6 months that we did as academics for our college was all food and beverage related. So we did nothing with rooms, we did nothing with events or HR or sales. It was all food and beverage. Our biggest year, like, kind of project for group work was starting our own restaurant from a location randomly provided to us, and that included doing layouts, making schedules, salaries, and calculating food costs, because you got to make money on your food. So, like, we had to calculate, if we're doing a kids menu, pancakes, 3 pancakes, right? What is the yield of all those 3 pancakes? And there's a whole, like, I have a 200-page report with the group work I did, kind of breaking down on each item of the menu and saying, okay, for a pancake, you need flour, you need sugar, you need yeast, and all these things, kind of thing that's used. How much would you use and how much would it charge? So, say total comes up to $4 in all the ingredients you've used. We're going to charge you $12 for that. So your profit is $8 on each item you sell. Is that too high? Is that too low? Based on your location. We had to make income statements and balance sheets as well, which was not my greatest strength either. So yeah.
Oh
There's
wow.
that phrase. There's that phrase I've heard from a lot of people. I think you, like, after your explanation, it sort of sums it up as well. Like, the restaurant makes or breaks any hotel.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. No,
Is that true?
absolutely. Because it's true, and I think it's important to have a good restaurant. Obviously, it depends again on the hotel in type you're in. Obviously, if you're going to a 5-star hotel, you want a good restaurant. You want to have the comfort of just being within that property. When you go to something like a Hampton or something like a motel, you're not going to get a restaurant. You're going to get maybe a breakfast buffet, but that's pretty much it. You go to a Westin, you go to a Hilton, you're going to get a good restaurant there. You want to make good food. You want to have your customers eat with you there. And then if the restaurant is not good and you have complaints, that goes straight to the front desk, right? That's again that first point of contact. All the complaints always go to front desk, and then they kind of dictate it to other departments.
Yeah, and then are you also monitoring like waste as well? So, example, let's say now you have, for example, like 3 pancakes. Let's say like on average, like the pancakes are so big that people are only eating two, and then every time
Okay.
you serve pancakes, like what pancake is being wasted? So, I mean, in general,
Oh
in
yeah,
the
absolutely.
restaurant side of things. Yeah.
No, absolutely, and I think it's important to understand that waste management is very important, because you don't want to be having something on the menu, buying ingredients for things you're not going to sell. If you have uh, oysters in your menu and you're not selling enough oysters to justify the cost of those buying, you're going to have to get that out of the menu. And kind of that's why chefs are always looking to revamp their menus and saying, okay, hey, this dish doesn't work. We're gonna substitute it with this one. This ingredient is too expensive. We're gonna move out of it. And then again, external factors matter. Okay, is getting oysters very expensive? Are you in a region, like if you're in the middle of Kansas or something, getting oysters is very difficult. So you got to get them in. Now, is that expensive, or is that worth it having that in the restaurant? Whereas if you're compared to somewhere in Maine, or if you're compared to somewhere in Los Angeles where the coast is on either side, you got to figure it out. Okay, which one works best? And that's where also like the external factors play in, of like tariffs, and then you've got certain things that really push you down on industry standards. Like, is your restaurant going to be able to sell that dish to the customer that you're doing? Because when you're a restaurant, you're also looking to sell it to locals, not just guests who's coming into the hotels. And this is alone as a standpoint as well.
All right, nice. I know we are going down a bit of a rabbit hole into like restaurants, but I just want to ask also about like drinks as well. If I'm not wrong, I feel like I think drinks are generally thought to be like the biggest money maker, especially alcohol, because you can sell them at the biggest margin. Is that correct? And so,
Yes.
like, how are you guys managing that as well?
Yeah, so that is correct. Alcohol,
Like, do you
liquor
learn
in
about
general.
like the different types of like alcohol, and then like which
We did have
pairs,
a
like
wine and
what
bar.
alcohol pairs well with this? Okay, right.
That's right. So we did have a wine and bar. We did have a wine and bar class and kind of exam as well, where we got to taste different types of wine and see. Okay, did you know that some of the wines have taste of leather, but you wouldn't really see it in the first place. Even I didn't understand it until you actually read about it in books. You have taste of licorice. You have taste of hazelnuts, and these are all in just red wines. You're like, okay, well, this doesn't make sense. But then
Yeah.
when
It's
it
like you hear these people taste alcohol, and like I get notes of hazelnut and notes of I don't know
yeah
X Y Z,
Honestly,
and they're like
and
I just taste
and us were
rum.
here being like, I get
Yeah,
taste of alcohol.
yeah, taste of
yeah no
alcohol.
no, I've genuinely had like when I was doing my sommelier exams, I genuinely had swirls and kind of like smells of wine, and I was like, okay, I can actually after reading my books and understanding what it is, I can genuinely smell tones of leather, and you're like, okay, why is there leather in it? And it's all based on the fermentation process and how you make it and what kind of oaks barrels do you use. Do you use stainless steel? Do you use oaks? If you use oaks, you're going to get smoky, woody. But again, like I said, that's a different topic. But answering your question on like how liquor really helps in the industry, it's like in restaurants, it's a big money maker. You you see a bottle of Malibu, you get 17 shots in a bottle. That's a standard bottle. You get 17 shots. That's the standard in liquors. You sell each shot for $8 to $10. You're making good amount of money on each one. I had a guest when I was working in Utah. There's a cognac called Louis 13. Louis 13 is one of the most expensive cognacs you can find. I think a bottle is almost 2 to 3K of cognac. And he just comes in for his 21st birthday in the US and he says, I want to buy the bottle. Obviously, we could not sell the bottle to him right away. So he said, okay, I'll buy it in shots. I'll buy 17 shots. So you can ring up 17 shots. That bottle price for each shot has been marked up to $800 already. So on the menu, that one shot is almost $600 to $800 because it's difficult to get it. So he paid 17 times $600 to get the bottle because he
What the
wanted to
heck?
have
That
it.
is crazy.
So that's just said, like that one bottle, which was invested like $2,000, they sold it way more than that. And it's the same with wine. The wine, you the more you keep the wine, and again, if it's a good bottle and a good year, you can sell more out of it. But again, it just depends. It's not all wine that you find in the store. If it's mass produced, you know that the quality isn't great. But there are some champagnes and Grand Crus that are like almost only 8 or 9 of them are made in a year because of the weather conditions or external factors. And the next thing you know, they're selling for $1,000, $2,000 bottle of champagnes.
Well,
So
I see. You're right. Definitely have to do another podcast on this and dive deeper. This is very
oh,
100%.
interesting.
definitely, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Nice. I also okay. Let's go back to like the hotel side of things. I don't think I want to ask you about like minibar. So minibar in the rooms. So what's
Yes.
that all about? Because it always feels like a trap. It's like you want to get it, but like there's like a Mars bar, but the Mars bar costs like $20. Like, what's
Yeah.
the deal with
So
that?
I think after COVID, mini bars were almost abolished in a way because people just it's a hassle for the hotel. It's a hassle to always replenish them because they have to track it. Because you could genuinely buy a Mars bar and then keep it there and we wouldn't know, right? It's simple as that. But if you take one, right, it's we got to go to each day. We got to go to your room when we do a servicing, and we got to check is it there, and then we replenish it, right? It's always difficult, and then we got to charge accordingly. So you'll see a lot of mischarges kind of on the front desk end as well, because it's chain of command. So housekeeping will notice, oh, okay, so mini bars, there's certain things that need to be replenished. You tell the restaurant comes in, they replenish, they charge you based on that, and then it's like a three people kind of like Chinese whispers almost. And then the front desk gets the news, and then you're like, well, okay, you come to the desk and say, hey, I didn't eat that Mars bar. I don't know what you're talking about, right? Because people can claim that. So minibar is a concept that was supposed to be of convenience for the guest, but then again, over the years, it's a hit or miss. People have come to the tricks of what it is. At the end of the day, the only reason it's priced high is because of convenience and the labor charge it takes to actually have someone go up to each room and check the minibars. But I think that's pretty much it behind that. So yeah, I personally do not touch the minibar when I'm there or anything else, because I know that it's very expensive. Unless I know my charge is covered by someone else. Other than that, it's not really needed, because you can get the same things outside, or you can even get the same meal from Uber Eats nowadays at the same price.
So on the minibar part, there was a hotel Four Seasons when I'd gone to or the Marriott, I can't remember, in Vietnam, and their minibars were sensor based, weight based.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you take out anything, they tell you have 60 seconds before we realize that you've taken out something and you need to be charged.
That's right. So a lot of hotels used to do that. Vegas hotels do that still. The hotel I currently work in used to do that. They changed it because after COVID they changed it, because they decided to remove minibar, then they decided to have it again. Again, in minibars, the biggest money maker is not the candies or the popcorn or what do you want to say it. It's the alcohol. It's because people don't want to go and buy liquor late at night, so they just take what's in the minibar. That's why if you notice, alcohol is always either just priced the same as a chocolate, or if it's a little, because they want to get people to buy as much as they can, drink as much as they can. So it's always, it's always the alcohol that gets you, or that's the main selling point of it. So that's pretty much it. The sensors part, when you talk about it, that's a technology that's actually pretty cool. 60 seconds you have it, but yeah, it's once you take it, you can always dispute it, because you can say, hey, look, I have the chocolate here, I just didn't know my kid took it, or whatever you want to say. But yeah, again, hit or miss.
Right. And then I also want to ask, I would assume that when you have guests, I'll say especially probably VIP guests, I'm guessing they have a lot of specific demands for their room. I don't know, maybe they're like, we're checking on this day, we want a life-size cardboard cutout of Donald Trump to greet me in the front door. I know, something weird like that. Is that quite common to have like guests with weird requests?
I'm not gonna lie. If I was the receptionist there, I would do that. Like, that's when it's too good.
The thing is, it is very, very common to have demands of certain guests. So when this is where all the departments I've worked in come into play. Current role, I am in sales. So we talk to certain travel agents and talk to certain groups that are either from the artist or they're performing one night in Vancouver, or they're doing something in Vancouver, or it's a sports game or something. And then they will have VIPs, because obviously they come with an entourage. So they will have VIPs, and they'll be like, okay, for example, we had Khalid stay with one of us, one of the hotels I worked in. Khalid is a very well-renowned singer. He came with his mom. We got him one of the best suites. He was comp upgraded. It was a full contract based with him. Came in, and then we got news that okay, they want certain things in his room. So he wants 4 bottles of sparkling water. He wants a bowl of fruits. He wants certain colored, like certain almonds that are chocolate covered. So again, these guys have certain things that they want, and obviously the hotel gets it. So he, with his sparkling water, he had a particular brand that he only wanted to work. The hotel I worked with only had Pepsi brands, so they had to go and buy these type of specialized Coke product or whatever you want to say it. They had to go and kind of like purchase it in that bulk for 2-3 nights he had, and then have it on call whenever he wanted it. Rather than keep the whole box in their room, they placed 4 or 5 bottles, and then when they ran out, they said, okay, we need to bring more. So it felt like the hotel already had the illusion of that. So those kind of things always kind of, those requests are always there. Seth Rogen is a local here. He's a Vancouverite. So when he came here to the hotel, he wanted a separate check-in because he didn't want to check in through he didn't want to check in through the front desk because he could get recognized. So he had a separate check-in desk. If the group is large enough and they have certain VIPs, they want to do it. They want to do it discreetly. They don't want people to know. So they'll have someone like a secretary or like someone representing them come and collect the keys, or the room is already checked in. So the room would be prepared, checked into the system. The keys are made. Someone just comes and collects the keys, and you don't even know they're in the room. Kind of situation.
And just while we're talking about food, I got some dinner right here as well. I got too hungry listening to this conversation. So actually, an interesting one on the separate, like the specialized check-in. I think recently I'd gone to Fairmont in Banff, so they're not too far from yourself, and that was quite interesting because they had two different check-ins. They had one for ordinary rooms, and they had one for VIP. The card holders and all those types of things, which was such a unique situation. Yeah, that was very interesting.
So Fairmont does it separately. Fairmont has a gold elite status program. So they have a separate check-in. They have a separate, completely separate check-in desks, separate agents who work for them in a way. They're also contracted by Fairmont, but like basically those are for the elite status, right? A lot of Vegas hotels do this, like hotels like Aria, Caesar's Palace, Bellagio. They have separate desks check-in, but they do it for suites and VIPs. And then commoners like us, we would just go stand in line and then check in. That would be the way it would work in Las Vegas because they want to streamline that process of checking in because they're in 800, 600 rooms hotels and there's always constant lineup. So they want to streamline the process as much as possible. Also gives them that exclusivity, like, oh, look, I'm a gold holder, so I have something better. So it's always a matter of that as well. It's like airlines in the end of the day, right? Because you've got economy, you've got business, and you've got first, right? So you can also do online check-in. It same applies for hotels. You can also do online check-in. Sometimes if the room is a suite, we need to verify who you are. So we kind of need to come face to face, see an ID, do a credit card check-in, but the process is much smoother when you do an online check-in.
Okay. And I also want to ask, so obviously you have like, the star rating system for hotels.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what's the difference between a 3-star and a 4-star and a 4-star and a 5-star? Like what do you need to make that jump, each time?
That's a very good question.
And sorry, just to add to that question, you can also break it down country-wise because I feel like it depends country-wise as well. So just sum it up.
When it comes to star ratings, they're all different, and like you said, each country has different standards of star rating. In the US, there's no such thing as 4 or 5 star; it's 4 diamonds. In the US, they work with the diamonds.
Oh, what? Seriously? What the heck?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes, but at the end of the day, it's the same as star rating. It's the same star ratings. So the difference between a 3-star and a 4-star, what you're looking at is pretty simple. It's more of like, comfort, certain amenities, facilities play a big part of it as well. And when you go to a 4-star hotel, you're looking at a little bit more comfortable services than the 3-star. So you're looking at multiple dining options. You're looking maybe at a concierge service added on, maybe some extra room features. And when it comes to the 5-star ones, it's always personalized, right? You're looking at how can you do personalized services, certain high-end amenities. Some 4-star hotels would not have spas. Some would, right? There are also some 4-star hotels that have spas, like the Westin, but they're a 4-star hotel because they lack in other attention, other parts of services, right? Like I mentioned as well before, answering Rishi's question about different countries. Like I said, North America is, it's an agency. Again, they work with, I think it's called AAA. That's what they call it, the Diamond Services. And then the next one, this is also North American kind of idea, Forbes. Forbes is a big part of hospitality in North America. Forbes services, you got to get verified by Forbes, and they have a very
Wait, Forbes,
particular.
Forbes like the
Yep,
richest people. Oh
that's
wow,
right.
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, the websites, they basically do something similar for hotels. So they have a Forbes 5-star rating kind of list, or 5-star recommended kind of list. For your hotel, you have to pay to Forbes for them to come in and give you a training. And if you pass that training, they'll come and audit you. But you don't know when the audit's going to happen. You're just given a time frame, so you can say it's from February to May, and within that 2 months, you're going to have someone come in. You don't know who, you don't know what, but they're gonna see how you do it, And there's certain things for Forbes, because I have had Forbes 5-star training for one of the hotels I worked in, and when you work at front desk for Forbes, you have to say their name 3 times. You have to say their name 3 times, not in a row, but in the whole conversation you have to say their name 3 times. You cannot ask the same questions that you have the bellman has asked them already. So the bellman might ask you, "Oh, how was the service? Where'd you fly in from?" So when the bellman comes to the front desk, the bellman has to give you an introduction, kind of like, "Oh, this is Mr. Rajat. He's flown in from the UK." So you already know 2 things about that. He's from the UK. He's flown in, right? He's had his flight come in. So you don't ask him, "Oh, so where'd you come in from?" You say, "How was your flight? Can I have a piece of ID?" So on, and then you have to say his last name. So sometimes you even know the guest name, because the valet would say like, "Oh, Mr. Rajat has just pulled in. He's coming to the front desk on a radio," because they work with radio. So you'd be like, "Oh, Mr. Rajat, we've been expecting you. Welcome to the Four Seasons," kind of thing. And then
That is
that
incredible.
Wow, yeah,
and
that is crazy.
other thing you have to ask is like, if there are upgrades, you have to offer them upgrades in a way of paid or non-paid. You have to acknowledge their membership status. So if you're an ambassador level of something, I'll be like, "Oh, Mr. Rajat, I see that you're an ambassador level of Four Seasons. Thank you for your loyalty. We appreciate your contribution towards us." And then you have to offer them luggage services, regardless if it's a backpack they carry. You have to ask them, "Do you need assistance with your luggage?" You have to offer to escort up to the room, and if there's no bellman available, you do it yourself. So it's a whole process you have to do. And then they test you on other things as well. In-room dining, they test you. So it's a whole process, the whole test that they do. You could fail at anything because you don't know who the guest is. You mess up once, you could fail it. They always have some sort of an allergy, so they'll call and say, "Oh, I want a French fries with my burger, but I am allergic to cheese." So you gotta make it a dairy-free burger, kind of thing, right? When it comes to Europe, they work with 5-star ratings, and then this is actually issued by governments as well. So it's pretty standard. It's like the one in Europe is the same as in Asia and same as Middle East, right? When it comes to the Middle East, there's obviously some great hotels. Like the Palm itself has got, the whole Palm is just a range of 5-star hotels. You start from the one and only all the way ends up to Royal Atlantis. And then you have Burj Al Arab, which is 7-star. Again, that's a marketing stint, which has worked very, very well for them. Because there is no such thing as a 7-star hotel, but this is a 5-star property, right? And that marketing stint has worked so well for them, but in the last few years, it's kind of died down because they don't work with that anymore, because there's so many other competitions around. So yeah, I think it's also about, I guess.
Wait, but are you allowed to say you're a 7-star? Isn't that like not allowed because you're just like throwing
Well, it's
yourself?
again,
Isn't there a way to judge?
no, but there's the thing is, if the concept of a 7-star official doesn't exist, you're technically not giving wrong information, because they are a 5-star property, right? When you look at it that way, again, it's a marketing stint, it's a marketing stunt. It works best for them because they're showcasing like, look, we're not just 5, we're better than a 5. But there's nothing better than a 5-star. That's recorded officially. So that's how they get away with it in a way. But again, it's nothing that you can take it seriously. It's like, it's a grain of salt, right? Literally no official body can give you more than 5 stars. And 5 stars, you have to maintain that. That's the whole nother prospect of it. You have to be consistent in it. With Forbes, you have to do it every year, the audit, because it resets every year.
That feels like so much pressure. Like,
oh, it's constant pressure.
I mean, yeah.
It's
I mean,
it's
like,
a
I get,
constant
like, for
pressure.
example, like that thing about the not asking the same questions as the doorman,
Mhm.
which in theory makes sense because as a customer, you don't want to keep saying like where you have come from, like
Exactly.
to like three different people. But like the
Mhm.
fact that it's put into a process and a guideline
Yes.
is so fascinating because you would not think of it in that way, you know?
Yeah. I think the best hotels that do this are Four Seasons, Fairmount. Only particular Fairmount properties do that. There are three Fairmount properties in Vancouver. Only one of them is considered a Forbes 5 star. So you can imagine the standards are so high for Forbes as well. You have hotels like Mandarin Oriental from Asia. You have hotels like I want to say the Ritz Carltons. They're one of the best in this type of services. Um, I think there was an incident of personalized service that a guest in the U.S. flew from, I think it was New York to Colorado or New York to L.A. and he forgot his hand luggage at in his hotel in New York, and the concierge flew personally to give it to him. That's the level of service that they provide in a way. Again, this is a one-off example, but it's an example that's renowned in the industry, kind of thing. That's what Ritz Carlton is known for as well. So again, it's really the personalized service that differentiates you from 4 to 5 star.
Nice, nice. And then I also want to ask, so I mean, you talked before about like, the VIP suites and
Mhm.
stuff. What is the most amazing VIP suite that you've seen, like in person?
Ooh, yeesh. There's quite a few actually. I would say I've seen this. The previous property I worked for, JW Marriott. They have a 2 story. It's a 2 bedroom duplex penthouse kind of thing. It's got a pool table. It's got its own bar in it. It's got a patio. It's really cool. But then in the same city as Vancouver, you have Fairmount, one of the Forbes 5 star recognized property. They have a whole floor of just a penthouse, which has got its grand piano. You've got 3 bedrooms in it, and suites differ from like hotels to hotels and how you personalize it. Um, like the hotel that I mentioned with the Marriott, that hotel is considered to be an outside of the box than a standard hotel. It's supposed to be cool, funky, more hip. So you've got neon lightings in there, whereas the Fairmont's more traditional. You've got traditional hotel amenities, and you don't have anything that's a neon light in there, kind of thing. So suites are crazy. The one I worked in Arizona was a whole four bedroom villa, but that was considered a suite. So it had its own pool. It came with a private chef. It had 4 people in there, 4 bedrooms in there with a table tennis and everything as well, what you need.
And like how much is that going for per night?
That villa a night goes for $8,000, but you cannot book it just one night. You have to book a minimum of 2 to 3 nights. That's the catch.
Uh,
The one in the hotel I worked in Arizona, it was 35 guest rooms and then 36 including the villa. And their daily night prices are between $2,000 to $3,000 a night. The catch is you cannot book one night. You have to book 2 to 3 nights minimum. If it's a weekend, you got to book 2 to 3, and if it's a weekday, you can book 2 and get away with it. But your daily night charges are $2,000 to $3,000 based on the season. Food and beverages included, but alcohol is not. So you can eat all you want, but when you want to drink, you're paying the bottle that costs $40 in the supermarket. You're paying 120 for it in the restaurant. That's how they get money from it. And if you bring your own bottle to be clever, we charge you $75 just to open it. Whether we open it or you open it, you
wait,
pay $75.
serious?
Oh
You
yeah,
can't
because
even bring
people
your own. Oh,
you can absolutely you can bring your own,
oh,
and
okay.
then
I
you,
mean, you
you can
can,
say,
but
oh,
right, yeah.
yeah, then you say like, oh, I'm going to open it myself. You're like, yeah, but we're still going to charge you 75. Whether I open it for you or you open it yourself, you're drinking in the restaurant with your meal. We charge $75. That's the corkage fee.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine
Oh
me
yeah.
paying 75 to have your alcohol level open. That's
I think
wow.
after
Yeah.
all those figures, I'll go camping. I think that would be good.
Well, glamping is another sector of hospitality industry that's getting in, which is basically glamorous camping, where you're in a tent. You're in a tent, but it's the walls. Some of the walls are concrete, so it's like still an apartment at the end of the day. It's a 2-bedroom tent, and you're like, this is not a tent. Just because the outside looks like a tent doesn't make it a tent, right?
So Vikram, the whole glamping thing in Kenya, it's a very big
Oh
sector
yeah,
because of all the
yeah,
wildlife and all the places to go to. So glamping is very big over here.
that's right. And then glamping is also considered like a hotel at the end of the day. So the services stay standard there too.
But actually, going back to also that thing about opening the bottle, I guess if you're paying 8,000 a night, I mean, like $75 is probably not even like it's
Oh
no big deal, right? So or even 120
No.
for the bottle. So I mean, doesn't really make it.
But that's the cheapest one, right? That's the cheapest one. Like the menu, the wine book they had. I think one of the bottles cost $1,200, and I've sold 4 of those over the course of the year I was there. But it was, those type of wines you don't sell. They know what they want, so they look at it. They say, "We want this bottle of wine," and you're like, "Are you sure?" You're like, "Yeah, we know what we want. We want that one." You don't even have to explain it. Whereas when you're trying to sell the $120, the $140 bottles of wine, you got to really sell it. You got to say, "Oh, it has got buttery taste. It's got this, that," and you're like, "Oh, cool. Okay, we'll try it if you say it," kind of thing. It's all about taste, right?
So I don't know if you have Rajat another question on this topic. So there's one area like for my questions that I want to ask, and that comes to the reviews part of the travel and tourism sector, because I feel like that also is another make or break, right? And
Oh
the
yeah.
pressure, stress, and response timing, how you respond to those. If you can share some experience on that.
No, absolutely. I think reviews for each department are important. So what happens when it comes to reviews is that based on the hotel operations and how they function, um, each review is read by the hotel manager in a way, good or bad, and then obviously it's replied. And if it's escalated to a certain level, then the general manager would kind of get involved in it. You get certain surveys and online reviews from the hotel itself, which are managed by the department. So this could be through your front desk manager, your F&B manager, and they're kind of like, go directly to their email, and then they'll review it on timely manner. And they say, oh, okay, we got 2.5 out of a 5 on our service. Why was that? They'll give an explanation. Our check-in was late, food came cold, so on and so on. So front desk again would be the bearer of the bad news when it comes to review, and then they'll ask like, okay, food came cold. They'll call in from dining or the restaurant to be like, okay, do you remember this guest? This was the check number, because they'll look at the reservation kind of thing. They'll say, why was it late? What happened? Do you recall anything particular? Like, you'll have disputes, right? You'll be like, oh, I ordered this, but this came and they didn't compensate me for anything. They were just shrugged it off. Then they'll ask, okay, what happened? Do you know? Was the manager involved? They'll get to the bottom of it before sending a review. If it's escalated, or if it's something that's kind of like a claim that you need to be you verify it completely. If it's like a general thing, then it's okay. You respond, oh, I'm glad you had a great time, or we're sorry for this. How about we offer you 1,000 points or this and that. The second thing also you got to look at is if a name is mentioned on a review, good or bad. If it's bad, then obviously you're going to get not reprimanded, but your side of the story will be heard, what happened, and then based on that they'll kind of get back to you. Most situations you're going to get reprimanded even if you're the good guy in the story, like if it's a bad review but you were the one who was nice about it. But if it's a good review, you get acknowledged, you get some sort of like a $5 certificate or whatever based on what it is. So some hotels will notice, some staff will be like, oh, a great review goes a long way, it gets you recognized. And this happens mainly in Asia, where recognition is a part of a work culture, whereas to North America you don't really have that. So you don't have to leave a review with the name on it, but when you do, they just get reprimanded differently, because the reward is so small here for them. It's a $5 gift card or $5, $10 something. And they're like, it means nothing to them. So, but in Asia, the recognition is very important.
Yeah, I guess culturally, right? As you said, yeah, as culturally, as you said, like they feel a bit more, I don't know, hospitable towards.
Exactly.
And I'm
Yeah.
guessing, I know, correct me if I'm wrong. Also, I guess in North America, um, you would they would want more in terms of like tips from customers as opposed to in other parts of the world where tipping is not really that big of a culture. I know.
Exactly. No, exactly. That's correct. So I think the tip culture is a whole nother segment of conversation, and it's something that's you understand it's good because you're trying to help out someone. But then again, the tipping culture is so neutralized here, or it's so immune to everyone that people leave a tip regardless of what the service is, because like managers now expect it to happen, right? Like tips just to happen like that. So they pay less, they get you onto less for hourly or so on because they make it up on tips. So you'll notice if you ever have a chance, and if you just look at jobs in like Northern America for servers, they'll get paid less in the kitchen, significantly less in the kitchen, but then again, they make it up in tips, right? And then there's a whole section of other tips pooled or not. And some hotels like Four Seasons, the front desk is not allowed to take tips because you're just doing a service. But restaurants, yes, because you're giving a different type of service. So front desk agents would get paid more than restaurant service kind of thing because again, tips is not a culture that might work in the hotel or might not. Yeah, but tipping culture is great for restaurant service, and I think if you did a good service, they deserve a tip. But then when you expect a tip, it just becomes very awkward.
Yeah, yeah. And also just to touch upon something you mentioned a bit earlier about like bad reviews. I mean, I'm guessing you'll get a lot of people putting a bad review, basically trying to get something out of the hotel, trying to get something, a free night stay or whatever, like basically putting something false. And so, like, how do you deal with that? Is it mostly like a customer is always right kind of situation, or
No, but then
pushback?
not necessarily. That's where I think the verification of the claim comes in, right? That's where managers have to really, because to get a free night stay, anyone could say anything, but to really come forward with it, you have to say, okay, I came into my room, there was hair, there was this and that, but did you tell it to the manager on duty? Was it in the report? Because each night the managers or each department would write a report like, okay, we gave this meal complimentary because they found something, or this blah blah blah. So if you found a hair in your room when you checked in when it's supposed to be brand new, do you tell them right away? Then they make an issue out of it. Then you can claim, okay, I want a free night, I want this or that. But if you're telling me after you've checked out, like you had a 3 night stay, you've checked out, and you're saying, hey, I found hair on the first day, yeah, your claim is not, you didn't come right at time to do it. So then it's based on managers on how they want to do it. If the guest is right in front of you and they're aggressive and they're shouting at you, yeah, maybe. But if it's just a review, you can decline it and say, look, I understand your concern. We can offer you points, but we can't give you a free night kind of thing. So it depends.
Yeah. And then I have a final question from my side. Is that do you have any like tips for both of us and the listeners as to how to get the best possible deal from a hotel? Like I know, when to book, what are the best times, certain strategies. Do you have anything like as someone on the inside?
Um, again, it depends on where you're going and how long you're going for. If you notice on the hotel websites, you'll get like, oh, if you're going for 5 to 6 days, like 5 nights, 6 days kind of situation, you'll have long-term stays discounts, right? Always be a member. I always recommend being a member because even if you're a base member, you still get a different rate. I think Hilton is an example of that. Sometimes the rate is at $410, but for members is at $380. You save money there. Even it might not be a lot, but $30-40 a night can get a lot. You can also have certain, I don't know, for example, if you know your pre-planned really well and you're going to go on this time of the month, you can always check your prices daily. Talk to your hotel friends, see if they can get you on their friends and family discount. That always helps.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking to our hotel friend.
Yeah, I think I'm on a couple of them already myself, not just mine, but also other hotels. So it's always good to have those. And then look for packages because there's always, like, for example, Japan is a great example. Japan, there's a cherry blossom season. So, those days are going to be completely busy. So look for packages that have from the hotel website, like oh, come stay 3 nights and you can kind of get this and you get breakfast included or something like that. And I think that's still a deal at the end of the day. Yeah, but I think that would be the best way to really go about it.
We've got to have you back on here to talk about wine one day.
For sure.
The thing is,
Honestly,
the thing is,
sounds
one
good.
of the first questions you asked me was what my degree was, and it's international hospitality and events management, and we never spoke about events.
No, we'll have you on for a second one. I think there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Like a lot of areas.
Like I said, yeah.
It's good.
No, like I said, the hotel industry is massive, right? It's really really vast. So you gotta be really narrow on what you want to talk about.
I mean, honestly, there's so much to it. I didn't even realize how many. I mean, there's a lot of things you taught us here that I had no clue about. And we will be expecting in terms of promoting our podcast some free vouchers to some good hotels. So yeah, I trust you will send us good ones.
One thing I want to
But
say, just to add on to what Rishi said about how vast it is, and you don't realize how vast it is. One of the experiences when I was in college for my first year of recruitment forum, they do with different hotels coming in, and you kind of give your CVs out. One of the a few of the things were okay. It's general to understand hotels and restaurants coming in to recruit you, but then you also have banks to come in, and then cruise ships industries as well. Then then you're wondering why are banks here, like UBS and RBS also was there. And you're like, okay, why are these guys here? And then next thing you know, they want customer service representatives from hospitality industries because of the way they interact with guests and customers. So that's another industry that opens up for hospitality students as well.
that is very interesting. Very, very. It's a massive, broad space. Yeah, honestly, I don't have many. Well, I have too many questions to be honest. But I think
yeah. I think we can definitely do a part 2. So I mean, we can go on to the final section. Rishi, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'll ask 3. You can ask the other 3.
All right, done.
So
Okay.
a bit of a different question to what we.
So we have some rapid fire questions, Vic, coming up.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, but a bit of a different question. The first one of mine, because of the topics you have talked about. What is the best dish you have eaten? Wait, Rajat, your background is.
Sorry, could you repeat that? Rajat was being a little bit disturbing.
What is the best dish you have ever had? Give as much description about it as possible.
Oh, that's again. I know it's rapid fire, but then you've kind of put me on the spot here. I think the best dish I've ever eaten. I think it has to be the beef Wellington that I had an opportunity to taste. I think it was wrapped in perfect pastry from the outside, cooked perfectly. They opened a Gordon Ramsay restaurant in Vancouver, and one of his dishes is beef Wellington.
I was literally going to ask you, you're like Gordon Ramsay?
So I had the opportunity to try his restaurant. I don't know if he was there. I don't think he was. But again, this was something that I had an opportunity to taste. Never had beef Wellington in my life. I always heard about it from media and obviously watching it on cooking shows. But then trying it for the first time was a completely different experience. I think it was great with the black pepper sauce they make it. I think it's you put it on top. It's fantastic, and that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, really good answer. Second question, I think it's appropriate again to your cause.
Okay.
I've asked it for a while. Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Smooth, absolutely smooth peanut butter. Crunchy is great, but then when you want to make a smoothie or something, I think smooth always works.
Oh wow, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's get a dark turn and twist to this last question of mine. Okay. So, what's one one failure that you've had? If you don't want to say it, but the main question is, how did you surpass this failure? What would you tell our listeners?
I think, well, this is a little bit of a deep one, and I think Rajat has watched me experience it a little bit. It's when I finished grade 11 and I had to choose a BTech course. I think that was really disheartening a little bit at the time, because I think it was something I didn't know that was even a possibility. I didn't take it seriously, my studies in high school, and then obviously to overcome it, when I went to college, to school in Switzerland, I think it was a whole game changing experience. I think I knew I had to get my act together and recover from it. So the way I overcame it was just focusing as much as I could on what I need to learn, and then graduating with honors. I think was the way to prove it to my parents, to my mom. Kind of like, okay, I've done what I did. I know high school wasn't the greatest, but here I am, that kind of thing. So I think that was it.
My God! Well, congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really good. I think to our listeners out there, it clearly shows like it doesn't matter what point in time, how bad things are, you can literally turn the situation around, as shown over here by expert in many things.
But yeah, so I'll go. The next question from my side is, if you could meet any three people, dead or alive, who would you want to meet?
Again, these are always tricky questions because you don't want to say something that's out of the blue there. I think I'd like to meet. I think I'd like to meet Virat Kohli right now, given what's going on in the current industry and
Yeah, I mean, he's well, partly retired now, so
he's got more time on his hands, I suppose. And I want to ask him why, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to meet. You know what? I'd like to meet the founder of Four Seasons. This is something that's always for me, at least in the industry, is always said, because it's Four Seasons is a Canadian company, so it's always good to know why and what made him, initiate that sort of a situation. And I think the last one I'd want to meet is probably Princess Diana. Kind of, see what's going on.
I really like those answers. They keep getting better and better.
Because they're all three different industries, three different people. One's royalty, and you're like, okay, how do you put these three people in a room, and what conversation would they have if they're in the same room, right? Kind of situation. So.
Next one from my side is, what's your go-to karaoke song?
Ooh. Well, right now it's going to be more than you know by Axwell and Ingrossos.
Oh, right, that's
that. Yeah.
I mean, that's quite random. I mean, it's not like a new song. It's
no, it's not. It's not a new song.
How's that suddenly come up?
Yeah, it's been part of my journey in Switzerland, because that's when it came out, and a lot of drunken nights and a lot of good nights have ended on that song for me. So it's a good nostalgic feel. Yeah. Oh, and also second. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, second one I'd like to put is Eminem, "Love the Way You Lie." This is because Rajat.
Oh yeah, we won't go deeper into that. That's okay. Yeah, final one from my side is, what is one quote that you really resonate with, or someone that you really like?
One quote. Oof. Well, currently the way my life is going, it's I would like to say it's just what was it? Yeah, it was just because I don't care doesn't mean I don't understand kind of quote. This was said by Homer Simpsons, but again, there are many other quotes that I would really get to. But
I love that.
But given what my life currently is, with a lot of like economic pressure, with the tariffs and everything that's going on, just my quote will be, just because I don't care, it doesn't mean I don't understand. So.
Okay. Nice. I love it. Great. And that brings us to the end of our podcast. I knew this would be a good episode, but I think this surpassed my expectations on how good this episode was. This was really, really interesting and insightful.
So, I mean, it was so good, like a description of some things. I had to eat some chicken wraps when we're discussing the entire culinary section of the podcast.
No, like I said, there's a lot more questions and a lot more industries we can talk about in the future as well. I think it's a great industry, and I love that. So it's beautiful in its own way.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So yeah, thanks a lot, Vic, for coming on. Thanks for waking up early in the morning to come on the podcast. Enjoy the rest of your holiday today. And
Thank you.
Yeah, and to everyone else, hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, if you did, like, share, subscribe, all that, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.